welcome back to another Flying Gadget Report. So, are you ready to talk about flying gadgets? Oh, well, I certainly am. And today we're not talking about the gadgets, but we're talking about the airlines. We conclude our February with another of my favorite airlines. This one was the first airline I flew with, which was KLM. I have the opportunity of telling you that story before. And it was an airline that I actually enjoyed flying with. And as I explained back then, I just didn't like the partnership they had with Malaysia Airlines at the time, that I didn't really enjoy Malaysia Airlines, I'm afraid. And that's why I stopped flying with KLM and I started flying with British Airways, which is another of my favorites. And but obviously I never forgot about KLM. I never forgot about the crews that are truly amazing, and it was a great experience. And obviously I have very fond memories of this airline, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about KLM's history. Once again, I have to tell you that this video will be, or might be, slightly bigger than the 10 minutes because it is hardly or almost impossible to resume the history of an airline in less than 10 minutes. So I apologize if the video is a little longer than usual. Again, I also have to apologize that I will be reading my notes, but the same reason, it is impossible to have the history of the airline in my head and knowing everything without making mistakes or without referring to my paperwork. So that's why I'll be looking a little bit down to read my papers. So stick around, let's talk about KLM. So let's talk about KLM, or Royal Dutch Airlines. As I said, is one of my favorite airlines. I really enjoyed the experience I had with KLM. And that's why I decided to pay it my tribute. And if I wanted to dedicate February to my favorite airlines, obviously I needed to include KLM in it because it is definitely one of my favorite. So let's talk about KLM and its amazing history. One of the very, very interesting things that I found about KLM is that KLM is actually the oldest airline in the world. I did not know that, and I was very surprised and to learn that it was the very first airline in the world, and still operating with its original name. That's why it is the first airline, because it has never changed name since it was created. Other airlines, for example, you saw with British Airways that had lots of transformations and mergers and things like that, and throughout the years the name was changing up to a point that the name of the company was registered. This did not happen with KLM. It has retained the same name since the very beginning, and its first flight was in 17th of May 1920. Amazing. 1920, with a plane that was leased, and the flight operated from London to Amsterdam. So it was quite an amazing feat. I think it was remarkable. And I think throughout this month, and what we found about, and in this case we only spoke about 4 airlines, but what we could say is that they really, this industry is really a pioneering industry. They always looking ahead and always trying to do things differently, and being innovative and trying to be different and be fantastic, because really they have done it. All these airlines and all aviation industry has been about exceeding themselves, improving themselves, going above and beyond, and being always on top of the world, literally, I would say. And I think that's what makes this industry so amazing, is that they, if there's something new, aviation is going to be the ones to try that and do that and go ahead and be inventive and be innovative and be creative and do things. And I think that's what I took from this month and learning about all of these airlines. I'm pretty sure that if I was talking about any other airline, I would find similar things. I would find more interesting things even. It would be very interesting. And I'm open to that. I might do that on a few other airlines. And then in continuing, because I was digressing, continuing in 1924, KLM starts its first international flight, intercontinental flight, I should say, with a test flight from Amsterdam to Batavia. Batavia was the name that was given back then to the city of Jakarta in Indonesia. So it was quite impressive that just in the 20s, 1924, an airline from Europe was already trying a flight from Amsterdam to the other side of the world and stopping in Jakarta. So it was quite amazing. The flight was then established, so this was a test flight in 1924, and then obviously the airline established the route, and the flights obviously started happening regularly as scheduled flights. In October 1934, KLM reaches Australia. That was amazing. KLM reaches Australia with flights from London to Melbourne. Quite amazing. So it reaches down under. It was first Jakarta and then Australia. So it was quite an amazing feat. We've seen that other airlines focused on, for example, colonies like TAP, focused in the former Portuguese colonies, and British Airways as well throughout the empire, and maybe more European flights, etc., etc. And KLM just decided to go a bit further and links Europe to Indonesia and Australia. Then we have the famous 60s, 70s, and 80s. And in this period, the airline keeps expanding. And this is what happens with every airline. One of the basic things is that once they've formed, the main thing is they have to expand. They have to start creating more routes. They have to create more infrastructure, and they have to get more passengers, because that's how they survive, obviously. And the airline gets its first Boeing 747 206B. Amazing, the queen of the skies. And obviously with that and the jet era, we saw that with other airlines, increases the airline's capacity dramatically, because a Boeing, and you knew that, the Boeing can carry way more passengers than the previous aircraft available. And this is a major step for aviation itself, and obviously for all the airlines that started using this aircraft and could increase their capacity dramatically, which obviously translated in profit. And that's also the main goal of every airline, of every company for that matter. So then also in this within these 30 years, so in these 3 decades, in the 90s, in 1989, KLM acquires 20% of Northwest Airlines from the US, and obviously there's a code share going on, etc., etc. KLM also launches, and this is important, also launches its Flying Blue frequent frequent flyer program, which was really something that was a very important step for them as well. I think all airlines started introducing this type of program. And this is another step, and KLM was the pioneer here, introduced the World Business Class. This was introduced by KLM according to, obviously, KLM's website. I'm going to leave the link below so you can read the history of this amazing airline step by step. Then, because again, expansion is always important to every airline, KLM forged a partnership with China Airlines, which allow them to expand to the Chinese market and extend their take into this market. So it is very important. It was a very important step for the airline. Then in the 2000s, more developments. KLM gets its first Boeing 717-200R and begin flights to Cape Town, Nairobi, and New York. So it extends to Africa and to the United States, which is again another important step for the airline, another expansion, and obviously more profit and more success as an airline. Then it was time to renew its fleet, because that's something that airlines have always in mind, is renewing their fleet, getting better aircraft, more efficient, etc., and start replacing their Boeing 767 by Airbus A330s in 2005. This is when this renewal occurred. Then in 2006 becomes the first airline to introduce the self-service kiosk, another pioneering step by KLM, and they introduced something that today it's a given. Every airline has. We all know about the self-service kiosks and get our boarding passes through there, etc., etc. So it was introduced by KLM, by the way. Then enters in a partnership with World Wildlife Fund, and I've spoken about this last year when I mentioned sustainable aviation fuel, that KLM was one of the companies involved in this. So they have a partnership with the World Wildlife Fund to reach agreements and introducing a carbon emission and earn, a carbon emission efficiency, and then they earn the best in class in energy efficient flights across the world, across all international airlines. So airline, again, KLM was a pioneer on this by partnering, and I mentioned that on my video that they are creating or they are helping develop more efficient SAF, so sustainable aviation fuel, and they are quite keen in reducing emissions, and that's one of the goals for KLM. Then another environmentally friendly measure in 2008, when KLM finally issues its last paper ticket. So bye paper. Everything is done online. You can have it on your phone. You can have it wherever you want. And it's much better. You don't need paper. You don't need to carry paper with you. It's just there on your phone. Then in the 2010s, so the last decade, KLM operates its first flight powered by biofuel, so by SAF. That's what I mentioned on that other video, and that's what I was talking about. And this happened in 2011, later extending to all international flights. So this is an important step when aviation really wants to help climate change and do something about reducing carbon emissions. They have to. Regulations are changing, and the world wants to reduce carbon emissions. And of course, we all know that aviation is a part of it. As I wrote as well in an article, they're not the biggest polluters in the world, but we all know planes obviously do a fair bit of pollution, and this is a step to reduce that, and a welcome step, I would say. Then in 2015 welcomes his first Dreamliner. Today I think the Dreamliner is a reality in almost all airlines, or in most airlines. So KLM welcomed this first Dreamliner in 2015. This was just a little resume of KLM's history. Obviously, there was so much more that you can find on their website, and I will leave the link below so you obviously can go and read everything in detail about the history of this amazing airline. And that's all for today. I hope you really enjoyed this gadget report about KLM and this little bit of history about this amazing airline. If you have anything to add, maybe you work at KLM and you would like to add something to this gadget report, please leave your comment below. I'll be very happy to hear from you. Or if you have any criticism, anything that I've probably forgot or didn't mention and you think is very important, please also leave your comment below. I would love to hear from you and share your ideas. Again, if you have an idea for something that you would like to see me talking about in these gadget reports, please also leave your comment below and suggest a subject for a video, and I will definitely consider it. Put a like on the video and share with your friends so we make this community of aviation lovers even bigger. And of course, subscribe the channel with a little click on the bell so you get a notification of a new flying gadget report every week. Before I go, I'd like to thank you all for watching. Have a lovely week. See you next time. Bye.